What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. The way I've viewed small ball lineups has always been that it's an attempt to force as much shooting, spacing, passing, and quickness on the offensive end, mainly to target opponents' slower bigs. But the only reasons these lineups end up small is due to these being guard skills. If you could have those same three attributes in 5 wing players on your team, you would rather run that as a small ball lineup than have small guards that could be exploited on the defensive end. The reason small ball lineups do become small is because those skills are much more easily found in smaller guards, and most, if not all, NBA teams simply don't have 5 wings that are the 5 most skilled on their team. All that is to say, why the hell is Kerr running these 4-guard lineups when he could just as easily, due to the abundance of wing players with guard skills, get all the benefits of small ball lineups with only 1 guard out there or even 0, and not be as vulnerable to counters that heavy guard lineups would face? Here's the thing. Guard skills go deeper than can you shoot, can you dribble, right? A big part of guard skills, particularly in the context of Golden State's offense, is read and react. What that means is it's like decision making. When to cut, when to shoot, when to make that pass, when a driving opportunity is available. Like, decision making is key in the 5-out offense, especially alongside Steph Curry, right? There was a play in the Team USA game today where Jason Tatum caught the ball in the right corner area, and he caught and stopped for a second, and Steph cut right to the wing next to him and was wide open, but Tatum just isn't used to playing with Steph, and so he didn't make that quick decision, and he missed the opportunity. And as much as Embiid had a better game today with Team USA, I thought Tatum had his worst game with Team USA. His decision-making was just super sloppy. He missed LeBron on the lob in transition. He missed Steph on that cut. He had some passes that he fumbled around the basket. It was just kind of a still struggling to shoot. So Tatum had a little bit of a rough night. But again, the point is within Golden State's offense, you need guys that continue to funnel the action in the direction of Steph, because that's your primary offensive engine. He's one of the best players in the world, right? And we have Steve Kerr on the record, by the way, that he doesn't think Kuminga and Wiggins can play together. Now, the data ended up being okay with them because they were athletic enough, and in the regular season context, especially in the urgency of their playoff seeding situation, they put up some good numbers. But I think the main concern for him there is, even though Moody, Wiggins, and Kuminga are all wings, and even though all 3 of them in theory have guard skills, I think he views them as a group that you could never play together simply because the ball would stick. Andrew Wiggins has a tendency to randomly hijack possessions and take contested 20-footers. Jonathan Kuminga is obviously still a young player that thinks more offense should be run through him. And Moses Moody, who I think is probably the easiest of those 3 to just kind of plug into the system, even he has a tendency to kind of stick sometimes and force up some threes, right? So those 3 guys, even though they're wings, they are not the types of guard skills that Steve Kerr is looking for within their 5-out offense in terms of quick ball and player movement. And so that's really the main kind of crux of it, is Steve Kerr would play a lot of lineups with Steph Curry and Brandon Podziemski on the floor at the same time, with even sometimes with Gary Payton, or even with Klay Thompson on the floor as well. He would do some of that stuff because he trusted those guys to keep the ball moving around. That's the main reason for it. But I believe if Steve Kerr actually thought Moody, Kuminga, and Wiggins could all do that, then he would lean into them. And then you'd see this lanky, athletic lineup out there. But I just think the offense would be really clunky without the real ball movement piece of it. How does one get into coaching without any college experience playing as an athlete? Coaching is a really... It's very cliquey, and it's very much it's kind of like an old boys club in some ways, in the sense that especially at the college level, the dudes that have been doing it forever, they reward lower level coaches primarily based on them grinding underneath them for a long time and paying their dues, so to speak. There are college programs out there that reward young talent. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't take place, but it is difficult. And so because the coaching environment is so cliquey, you really have to come in from the ground up. And so in the college level, that means try to get a job as a graduate assistant somewhere. Or maybe if you can look at the lower levels at like the JUCO or NAI levels, you might be able to find something where you're a volunteer assistant, or you're doing all the work but not making any or very little money, right? But even within that context, like for years, you're going to be doing stuff that sucks. You're going to be making sure guys are attending class, going to recruiting trips in, Vegas to watch, 25 high school basketball games in 2 days. You're gonna be constantly dealing with drama behind the scenes as players are dealing with stuff because you're dealing with kids, right? At the NBA level, if you want to get your foot in the door and you don't have playing experience, you're going to have to start in the film room. And it's like, get ready to just cut a bunch of film forever, right? Or like maybe you can parlay that into a job as a scout, which you can parlay into a lower level of assistant. But like, no matter what, the coaching sphere is never going to reward talent early. You're going to have to grind. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll get an opportunity down the line. It's a very, very difficult field to crack into. And I have friends that are doing it, that have had success. And like I have a friend that I played with in college who's now coaching for the Phoenix Suns. That's awesome. Like he parlayed it into something big, right? I have a buddy of mine that I used to work out with in the summers who's now a video coordinator with the Phoenix Suns. Like he's at the lower level, but he's trying to grind his way up, right? Like I've got several buddies that have been coaching at lower level college programs, right? And there are some of them that are still bouncing around lower level colleges, and then there are some of them that are rising up. There's a buddy of mine who's consistently taking leaps, and now he's in the Pac-12, and he's doing really, really well, right? So like, it's just tough. It's just tough. It's a grind. You have to be willing to kind of like, quote unquote, shovel shit for a little while to get into an opportunity to really be involved as a coach. But like, if you've got the capability, like if you're single and you can afford to go live in the middle of nowhere for a few years as you grind under somebody, like then you can do that. But it is a very, very difficult field to crack into. How many live NBA games have you been to over the last few years, and which NBA player is on your bucket list to see live? So I've been to 3 actual NBA games. I saw Anthony Davis years ago, back when I was working at Verizon. They had like a thing where they all Verizon like took a bunch of managers to a game, and it was like when Anthony Davis was on the Pelicans, and then I want to say it was like Eric Gordon was on the I think Eric Gordon was the best player on that Suns team, if I remember correctly, but AD ended up hitting a game winner in that game, so that was kind of cool. The second game that I went to was LeBron and the Cavs in 2016. It was in Phoenix as well. And this was the game where Kyrie Irving hit the huge dagger. This was like, I want to say shortly after Christmas, if I remember correctly, that particular year, which that was cool because they ended up going on to win the title that year. And then I saw the 2017 Cavs when I lived in Charlotte. I saw the Hornets versus the Cavs, and that was the best game I saw LeBron play. He had like 37 or something like that. And in that game, he hit a bunch of threes. But those are the only 3 actual NBA games I've been to. I live in Tucson, so like I have to like actually go somewhere to see a game. But I've been to like a bunch of really cool basketball events. Like I went to the Team USA game on Wednesday last week against Canada. I've been to 2. I went to 1 Elite 8 game out in Los Angeles at the then Staples Center. I saw Wisconsin versus Arizona. That was the game that Sam Decker hit like the rainbow over Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. That kind of iced the game. So I've been to a bunch of basketball events, but not a ton of NBA games. Been to like 20 or 30 games at McHale Center to watch the University of Arizona play. Obviously in Tucson, that's like the main basketball event that you go to. Which player is on your bucket list to see live? That's a good question. Seeing Steph with Team USA made me really want to go see him play with the Warriors. So I may try to get out and see him before he retires. Maybe next time he comes to Phoenix or something like that. Victor Wembanyama, I feel like, is a must-see guy. Love to see him in person. There's a bunch, though. Anthony Edwards is quickly becoming my favorite player, so that'd be a guy I'd love to see. All-time starting 5 using specific years of players, such as 2018 LeBron or 2017 KD, etc. I put 2022 Steph at the point. I put 1993 Michael Jordan at the 2. I put 1985 Larry Bird at the 3. 2018 LeBron at the 4. And 2001 Shaq at the 5. I think those are like 1993 MJ is the most dominant 2-guard that ever played. 2018 LeBron is the most dominant forward that ever played. 2001 Shaq is probably the most dominant center that ever played. Larry Bird in 1985 was just at an insane efficiency level. I think that'd be a really interesting fit alongside all those guys. And I am of the opinion that 2022 Steph, even though he had a little slump during the regular season, between like how well he played in the regular season in 2021 and how well he played in the postseason in 2022, I still think that version of Steph was the best. Big part of it too is just the coverages he was facing. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just more impressed by Steph dealing with blitzes and top blocking and all this crazy shit that he sees now than 2015 and 2016 when he was still seeing a lot of drop coverage and barbecuing guys. And so like, I do think Steph was at his best when he hoisted the trophy in 2022. Do you think the Bucks, as currently constructed, have any chance of winning the title next year? Their biggest move this offseason was losing Malik Beasley. Also, Dame, Brooke, and Middleton aren't getting any younger. This mailbag question might have come in before the Gary Trent signing. I actually think they upgraded a couple of their lower level players, and like as long as everyone's healthy and the continuity is there, you get a full camp with Doc Rivers. I haven't ranked my teams out west or out east yet. I still think they're below Boston, but like as we saw, if you get an upset, right? Like Denver got knocked off by Minnesota. What if Boston gets knocked off by New York next year? And then what if New York ends up being a tough matchup for Milwaukee and Milwaukee ends up beating New York? They could get in, right? So like, I still think anything could happen. I will probably end up splitting the tiers up very similarly to last year where it's like the actual bona fide top tier contenders and then it's like the puncher's chance contenders. And like, my guess is Milwaukee's going to be near the top of that particular list with those puncher's chance guys, which means they absolutely can win the title, right? Like, Dallas, say what you want about Dallas, they were there, right? They made it. So I think it'd be silly to say they couldn't win. Obviously, I think they're further away than people think, but I do think the Bucks are at a similar level there. With the lack of a true bulky power forward, do you think Philly will use a double big lineup with two centers and play a zone defense or something like that at times? Or do you think they have to go get a power forward in the trade market? I think obviously they're poised to potentially make a trade if they need to. They have some draft compensation, but a second part of this mailbag question is the questioner said that he thinks Embiid has the skill to play the four on offense. The main piece there is foot speed. I think if you put a center next to Embiid, I think the overall foot speed of your lineup would be bad, and I think you'd really struggle in transition. I do not view Embiid as a four. I think he has to play the five. The second piece of it is like the reality of their predicament in the sense that like it doesn't make sense to just put a big power forward next to him unless it's a good player. And more often than not, I think they're going to end up just going down with Paul George, Kelly Oubre, and Joel Embiid at the 3, 4, 5 is what I anticipate they will do. And again, like Paul George and Kelly Oubre are two pretty good athletes, so I think they can make up for the lack of that like truly imposing power forward. And Embiid just by himself brings a certain imposition on that front line. Thoughts on Jaden Springer's potential to crack the Celtics rotation? It's hard to say because the rotation, like especially with Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard and their development, is pretty iron tight. I do think he'll still play quite a bit in the regular season. To crack the regular rotation, he'd have to be a better decision maker. Like within the Celtics driving kick offense, you need guys that can dribble, shoot, and pass and make decisions. And those are specific weaknesses of Jaden Springer's. He's one of the most exciting, like young point of attack athletes to watch. Like when you watch him hound a ball handler full court, chase over the top of the screens, he can be downright disruptive. He's a super exciting athlete. But like within the Celtics decision making in their 5-out, how deliberate they are with their spacing, all that kind of stuff, it's hard for me to imagine him cracking the rotation. But he'll have his moments in the regular season just by virtue of trying to get through those 82 games. Which two guys from this year's Team USA, not counting Celtics, are most likely to say that they enjoy playing with each other and team up within the next 2 seasons? I'm not going to treat this as most likely. I'm going to treat this as what I want as a fan because I don't really get into the reporting side and I'm not really sure who's closest to being ready to leave versus who's not, so on and so forth. As a fan, though, I would love to see Bam and AD play together. Every time those two are on the floor, it's just fun to watch how frightening they are defensively on the front line. They're both flashing a lot of higher level offensive stuff with Team USA as well. Those two guys are easily the ones I'd want to see. Can you make a video about basketball terms for casual beginner basketball fans? Sometimes you say basketball plays, which I just can't visualize and understand. So it's hard to say that we'd make a video on it just simply because like there's not a whole lot to market with that in terms of like actually trying to turn it into like a real show, so to speak. But I have heard feedback from multiple levels, not just you guys, but also from my higher ups that like they want me to like continue to break things down really in the minutia, even when I've already done so in the past. And so one of my goals for next season is to continue to kind of really break down simple actions, like just to try to help the casual viewers that come into our show a little bit more infrequently. One of the other things we're doing now is we're using more video. We're using more like actual footage of NBA games. And we're also using our little play clipboard that we use now where I can use some X's and O's to demonstrate some concepts to you guys. We're going to continue to incorporate that over the course of the next few years. And it is my goal for that to be a better experience for you casual NBA fans. So I do appreciate the comment. It is something we're working on. Two more. Or one more than one announcement. Since you've been watching the NBA, what has been your favorite / most memorable season? 2016 by far. You had Steph's unanimous MVP campaign, which was full of all these crazy moments, peaking with that game winner against OKC when he just dribbled into a 40-footer. You had Kobe's 60-point game in his final game of the regular season. You had the Warriors get to 73 wins on the final game of the season. And then we had that epic Cavs Warriors. Well, first of all, we had the Warriors Thunder series in the conference finals. That was insane. And then we had the epic Cavs Warriors NBA finals, which went 7 games and ended on a LeBron James block and a Kyrie Irving step back 3. So it's hard to beat that because that was just an incredible NBA season. For me personally, that will always be the most memorable, at least until we see something better, right? And lastly, before we get out of here, last night was the finale of The Acolyte. And super, super interesting on a bunch of different levels. We had a concrete drop of Darth Plagueis, who is my favorite Star Wars character ever, and the main character of my favorite Star Wars book ever, which is the book called Plagueis, or Darth Plagueis. And I did an episode of Two Sons podcast with my buddy Luke. That's this one over here. You guys can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And we broke down for like 45 minutes all the different elements from the Acolyte finale. I'm also later today going to release a breakdown of episode 5 of House of the Dragon. So make sure for your Star Wars fans and Game of Thrones fans, hop over to my other pod and check those out.